Few moments to talk a little bit about Sukkot, since this is the Shabbat of Sukkot. It's one of those incredible holiday that spans thousands of years. It's really amazing. We, Jewish people, with the Hebrews, the Israelites, at the time of the first temple, I'm talking 3,000 years ago, inherited this holiday. This has been a holiday that has been going on for thousands of years, beyond our 3,000 of our own nation. Why? Because this is a holiday that speaks of the fall harvest. This is the celebration of the fall harvest. This is first and foremost, this is and was an agrarian holiday. So as far as we can remember, as far as human beings have been working the earth, we suspect that the time of the fall, the end of the summer, when everything was ripe and ready to be harvested, following the harvest were celebrations, especially if the harvest was abundant. So our holiday just is taken from probably pagan rituals before us and transformed into a specifically Jewish holiday. 3,000 years ago, at the time the temple was standing in Jerusalem, and we lived in an agrarian society, the fall harvest took place in a very small window of time. We had just a few days, a few weeks at most, to help each other harvest each other's fields. So what we did is we built huts. We built little booths that were made of whatever vegetation was around us. We put it together. We covered it with mostly, palm trees, leaves, or whatever we could find. And we built those in the middle of the fields so that as the harvest time happened, we didn't have to go home every day and come back, and we could help each other harvest each other's fields. It was kind of a shelter in which we ate, in which we took rest when the sun was beating down on us. 12 noon in Israel in September, October is pretty hot, so we needed some shade. And also this is where we slept. And it was a real communal experience, because all of us showed up for each other. Because one person could not harvest their own field, so the whole community showed up, harvested one field, then moved on to the next, and there was a sukkah. Everywhere we went, there was a booth in which we dwelled, in which we lived, whatever time it took to harvest this field and then that field. And at the end of the harvest, we would all walk to Jerusalem and bring as an offering in the temple the first fruit of the harvest, kind of a time of thanksgiving, times of gratitude. And it's all biblical, actually. And I'm not using these words haphazardly, because the pilgrims, when they wanted to express thanksgiving and gratitude, and they came here, they looked into the Bible, they looked into the Torah, and saw this holiday, the celebration of this cornucopia, right? The celebration of the cornucopia, of the abundance at the end of the summer of what was given through the fields and the harvests. And so they looked at that and they copied over Thanksgiving on the holiday of Sukkot, just like we took it from the pagans before us. So we know it's a chain of passing on what works, what happens, especially at this time of the year. But we would make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. 3 times a year, actually, we would make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and all the time connected to the seasons of the harvest. So the first one was for Passover, which is the beginning of the spring. The second was 7 weeks later. There was the barley harvest, or the wheat, and we went. This is the counting of the Omer and the waving of the sheaf of barley, as we count 49 days, 7 weeks. And we would make a second pilgrimage to the temple with the harvest and offer it up in the temple. And then the third time was for Sukkot. Those were really the major holidays of our tradition through the temple times. Others were really minor. We didn't have Hanukkah, for sure. And Purim and even the high holidays were not, that important. Because there was no synagogues. You have to understand, everything was temple-based. So everything that connected us to the temple was what was celebrated. So those three holidays specifically are called Chag. Chagim, what gets translated as holiday in English. But Chag means also, means something else in Hebrew, actually. It means pilgrimage, which gives us the word Hajj in Arabic, right? A Hajj is you go to Mecca. You make a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's the same word. We stop at G and they continue with Gj. Hajj, there's the same languages. They're similar languages. So the Chag, the Chagim, the holidays are really pilgrimage holidays. When we lost our land, when the Romans invaded and destroyed everything, killed 3/4 of our nation and dispersed the rest, burned down the temple to the ground, we got disconnected from the land. This was the time of the rise of rabbinic Judaism. And I want to emphasize that because rabbinic Judaism is the Judaism that we've come to learn and know about for the last 2,000 years. It started in the first century of the Common Era. The Judaism that existed prior to that, we have very little idea of what that really looked like. It's a completely different thing. But the rabbis were facing a challenge. It's like, how are we going to be able to continue this celebration of this unique holiday while we are completely uprooted from the land? And they had to transform what was an agrarian holiday into a religious holiday. So it's like stage 2, right? So how do we do that? They rewrote the story. They actually took a few passages from the Torah and reinterpreted them. And one of them made a connection, a vague connection, and we're going to study the Torah, those passages tomorrow morning in the Sukkah, 10:30 tomorrow morning at the home of David Krupkin and Michelle Broad. And if you want to join us, you gotta let us know because there are directions that you need to get there. It's in Sammamish Plateau. That's where our sukkah, the community sukkah is. Anyway, we're going to sit in the sukkah and look at those passages tomorrow. And one of them made allusion to, because that comes up every other paragraph in the Torah, of the Exodus from Egypt. Everywhere, it's everywhere. And so the rabbis transform the story by saying the booth in which we were dwelling were the booth we were dwelling into through the 40 years of our wandering. Right? So it's a story that continued with our exile. When we wander in exile through the 40 years of our wanderings, now that we are wandering through the earth, we can reclaim that holiday as an example or as a parallel to our personal national wandering. So they gave us a kind of an IKEA list in the Talmud of how you build a sukkah, what materials you need to use, and made sure that we would build a structure that was flimsy, that was temporary, that was at the mercy of the elements. And the sukkah, until this day, is actually built this way. And the teaching from that was, do not get complacent. Do not think that wherever it is you are dwelling right now is your final destination. Wherever you are as a Jewish people, maybe in France, in Germany, wherever you were dispersed, don't get comfortable. Wherever we dwell in a flimsy structure. This is temporary. And we, in fact, are at the mercy of the elements of our host nations, and we have been. And 2,000 years of our history has proven that over and over and over again. Because time and again, we had to pick up our flimsy structures and move on to another place, to another state, to another nation, to another place in the world. So we as a nation have really lived in Sukkot, for 2,000 years. And I wish I could say today that this time is over. It seems that we live here in America in another golden age, and maybe we can really have roots here and start to build a house of brick instead of a house of branches. It's like 3 little pigs all over again. But we can't. I mean, we see that anti-Semitism is rising again in Europe. It's rising here, and we're still dwelling in a sukkah. We're still dwelling in a sukkah. The other teachings that the Rabbi also loved to share was that we ourselves are a sukkah. We ourselves, our body are flimsy structures. We are just renters of these bodies as we travel through our lives. And not to try to find a permanence in what is, by definition, impermanent. And what the other things they did so that we could create rituals around that. So now didn't matter if we didn't have a field, we can build a sukkah anywhere we were. Even today, if you go to Israel, Israelis have little apartments, like IKEA-size apartments, really, with a very little balcony when you can, maybe 2 steps and that's it. And they build a sukkah right there. On the 3rd floor of their apartment building, they will put a sukkah right there. Or if they live in a community that has, several buildings of several stories high, and there's a courtyard in the middle, everybody will come down and the whole courtyard will be filled with different sukkot from different tenants of the apartment complex. And everybody would gather down on the ground floor and meet each other. It's still a very communal experience. If you go to some of the more orthodox religious areas, even here in Seattle, you'll see every courtyard has their little sukkah, and sometimes they're but back-to-back homes, and you can see that in their backyards. So they were, they had that problem solved, but they also wanted to infuse the holiday with different rituals. And what they also wanted to do is to keep us connected to the land of Israel. Though we were in diaspora, though we were dispersed all over the world, we needed something to keep us connected. And they also reinterpreted some of the verses in the Torah that speaks of the 4 species. Part of what the Torah is telling us is that as we celebrate Sukkot, we have to also bring in the 4 species. Some in early times, that was meant to be the 4 species with which we would build the sukkah. But since we didn't have many of those available, they switched that to having the 4 species that are native of Israel as part of the ritual. So they created this thing. They created this thing that is actually called a lulav. And the lulav, we get this one from Israel every year. It's shipped to us from Israel. The lulav has 4 species, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of these 4 species represent a geographical area in Israel. So it connects us directly with the land. So we start with, the name lulav actually is the name of the palm branch that is in the middle. Okay? The palm branch is a date palm. And that grows in the southern part of Israel, in the desert in Israel, palm trees. And that's where you find them. So that represents the southern part of Israel, the Negev and south. The north is represented by the Hadass. The Hadass is the myrtle right here. That grows in the mountains and the hills of the northern part of Israel. Then you have the Arava. This is the, how do you call this? Willow. The willow grows in the Nachalim, in the streams that are leading to the Jordan River on the east side of Israel. So the eastern side of Israel. And the etrog citron. It's a kind of citron, and that grows where all the orange groves and all the lemon groves are, which is on the shore of Israel, Tel Aviv. The orange is from Jaffa, right? Jaffa is the little village south of Tel Aviv. So this grows on the shores of Israel, on the west side of Israel. And what you do during the holidays, you put all them four together. You bring all parts of Israel together as one. So it's a way to connect with the land, and you have to shake the lulav. You have to become a tree. You can hear it. Hear my branches shaking in the wind. It's a very actually powerful experience. We'll do that in the Sukkah tomorrow as well. But the rabbis didn't stop there, obviously, because they love to talk and mix things up, so they continued. And this became also kind of a portal for to invite practice. To invite practice. So the ideal that it described in the Talmud was that a Jew should be at the same time a learned person, but also someone who does good deeds, who does mitzvot, who contributes to society and supports those in needs. And one who is both learned and is known to be having a great scent and great taste. And that was represented by the etrog. The etrog has magnificent scent, actually. It's just gorgeous. And you can open it and actually eat it. It's a very small piece inside of that, but it's like a lemon. So that which has both taste and scent represents the learned and do-gooder that you need to be. The palm is the date palm, and that has great taste, but no scent. So you could be greatly learned, but you're someone who doesn't do a lot of good deeds. Then the myrtle has great scent, but no taste. So you're not really learned, but you do a lot of good deeds. And then the willow has neither. And what you do during the holiday of Sukkot is that you bring all four together. It's like every member of the community, wherever they find themselves on the tree, is welcome under the Sukkah. This was really a time of ingathering. Actually, it's called the holiday of ingathering. And the holiday of ingathering is also an ingathering of the energies of the high holidays, the harvesting of whatever it is that emerged for us through that time of the high holidays. So that's how an agrarian holiday became a religious holiday. That's just beautiful and great, but it keeps evolving. And the third stage is when it becomes a spiritual, mystical holiday. And this is where I come in. Hi. No, but the Kabbalah got a hold of the holiday of Sukkot and transformed it once again. The 7 days of Sukkot were now mapped under the path of the Kabbalistic tree of life, and represented the 7 lower sephirot, the 7 lower station, the 7 lower energy centers of the Kabbalistic tree of life, going from the higher all the way to the bottom one. And what they did is that every day in the Sukkah was connected to a certain center of energy, a certain connection with the divine. And not only did they connect each of the days with some teachings from the Kabbalah, which infused the day with meditation practices, with ecstatic practices, they also connected back to the Torah by associating each of the days with one of the heroes of the Torah. So the first day of Sukkot, it's Abraham. Abraham is associated with the Sephirah, with the energy center of chesed, of kindness. So it's also an opportunity to kind of delve into who is Abraham and what does he represent and what's his life about and how can he be the energy of chesed, of kindness, of loving kindness. So it's also a place of study. And so every day you invite into your sukkah another of the heroes of Torah. Some Sukkot, they actually have an extra chair, right? They set up an extra chair because Abraham is sitting there today. And we're going to talk to Abraham. We're going to wrestle with Abraham, see what he brings, what's that about. And then the second day, you have another guest. And guest, actually, in Yiddish, you might have heard that word, is called ushpizin. There's actually a great movie called Ushpizin. And that's the practice. You bring guests, you bring ushpizin into your sukkah. You bring spiritual guests into your sukkah, but you also have to bring, you have to open your sukkah to guests. It's a communal experience. The second day is Isaac. Isaac represents the Sephirah of Gevurah, which is energies of justice, energy of judgment, of discernment, of restraint. Is the opposite of his father. His father was a zealot. He was too much dedicated to his idea of what God wanted from him, maybe a little bit too much. But it was this outpouring of dedication to spirit and to the divine. That was Abraham. Isaac is the opposite of that. The third day, the Sphira of Tiferet. Tiferet is the heart space, and that's Jacob. Jacob is the balance of his father and his grandfather. He balances them all out. They meet at the center of the third Sephirah of truth, of compassion, of heart space, and so on and so forth. And on the eighth day, you end at Malchut. You end at the lower part of the Sephirah. Malchut means the kingdom. That day is David, because it's King David, and it's about the kingdom. So what the Kabbalah has done is that he's helped us from the high of the high holy days come back down to the kingdom over the 8 days of the holy day. So when we are in Sukkot, we are back here. We're back here and we're ready to enter into this year that is beginning again. And just in that moment, the 8th day is the holiday of Simchat Torah, where we end reading the yearly cycle of the Torah and begin again with in the beginning. And we'll celebrate on Monday night. I hope you can come at 7 p.m. downstairs. We unfold the whole Torah all around the room and find ourselves encircled by a year worth of our spiritual journey. It's one of the most incredible times to share as a community, so I hope you can be there. But this is how we kind of had to find a way, and the Kabbalah has done that to kind of help us step down, so that we can walk back into the kingdom from the high holy days. I like to do show and tell sometimes. Nice. We have so many little tools like that to help us. It's really wonderful. When you take the lulav, you have to shake it, actually. That's also a mystical thing. We have to shake it in all 6 directions. North, south, east, west, up and down. Earthbound and heavenward. And that's also to harvest those energies. And you shake, and then you bring them to your heart. So you shake the north, east, and you connect to those energies, the energies of the north, the energies of the south. What are those energies? And what are you harvesting? What are you bringing in? What are you connecting to? All that under the shelter of your peace, under the Sukkot Shalom, under the Sukkah. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing that connects us through millennia. Every time I step into a sukkah, I'm sitting, not just with Abraham or Isaac or Jacob, but I'm sitting with lineage, thousands of years of Jews who have come together in the same. There are moments when you know you're connected because what's around you looks the same that it looked 2,000 years ago. So you know that you are exactly in that place like your great-great-great-great-grandparents were. It's really unique. It's really powerful.